And I did not become Darth Vader. And so what I'm telling people is I know Darth Vader when I see it. And again, he sits there and he gets people's confidence at key points, and then he attacks Ron Paul when Ron Paul had a chance to win in the primaries. Or he comes out and skillfully says there are no camps, when in Congress they've already built them, and it's in the Wall Street Journal and it's in the Houston Chronicle, and we sent him all that. And for months, he said, I'm investigating it. And then he came out and did straw man attacks, going after reports on camps that I had identified as fraudulent over a decade ago. And so I know what he's going to do before he does it. Also, you notice that the left always is invoking racism and saying anyone that criticizes him is race. Well, then when you tune into Beck, almost said Obama, he's always talking about Van Jones, our Black Panthers, and saying they're communists, they're gutter radicals, and there's going to be a new Malcolm X on the scene. So he is invoking race very, very skillfully. And, just to make it clear, two people I know are psyops, and that's Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. I don't believe Limbaugh's a psyop. He's just a Republican, operative. And I don't believe Michael Savage is, though he's got some major problems. At least he'll tell the truth about government-sponsored terror. And he doesn't, he criticized Bush heavily. He was against the banker bailout. So was Limbaugh. But see, Beck was for the banker bailout. See, that's the difference. And so when you really have been watching him for years, you know what he's doing, because the globalists have fallback positions. They're going to demonize populists from a left perspective to make leftists think it's a right-wing movement so they don't join. And then they're also going to have a Beck who's there to pose as the uber patriot so he can then attack 9/11 Truth and libertarian type groups. Go ahead.
Yeah. He sets you up, and he sets you up with truth. That's what people got to understand. You like what he says, and it's white propaganda, it's truth, but it's to set you up for the black. And if you read about, I would encourage listeners to look up and read up on psyops, as it really will awaken you to the whole game that's being played.
That's right. There's white propaganda, gray propaganda, and black propaganda. Has nothing to do with white people or black people. It's the different types of propaganda that are out there. And I don't want to spend too much time on Beck, but that is interesting because it's pointless. The new film, Police State 4, The Rise of FEMA, at the end has a 10-minute section debunking him on the FEMA camps. We show you all the evidence, the congressional testimony, the news articles, actual video of FEMA camps. We show how the government admits sports stadiums are emergency camps. They can use a baseball field as a camp. You get 2 hours and 10-plus minutes of documentation. Then we show you his psyop. But you're saying Beck came out today and said, well, there aren't camps, but they have the system in place. Well, obviously, it doesn't mean that everyone's in the camps. That's our whole point. People keep saying, well, where are they? Where are the trucks? Where are the people? We already have the biggest prison population in the world. They're already putting people in prison for almost no reason. They're calling for arresting political dissidents. They're marking them, putting them in databases. They're having military drills on locking down cities. The point is, they've put it in place. Go ahead.
Well, he ended the show with saying the danger of the system being built with the tracking of movements with your cell phones and the reading of emails. And he said, just imagine this system in the wrong hands. So, I was wondering, how is he setting up the audience with kind of reversing himself and kind of, hitting on the truth that you hit on? I'm trying to look through the psyop.
Well, here's what's happened. And this was reported by Arbitron, and it was reported by Nielsen last week. I happened across the ratings, and I went directly to the main sites. He's lost about 20% of his radio listeners the last 2 months, and he's lost about half his TV viewers the last 2 months. He's gone from right at 4 million to less than 2 million on TV. And so Beck is in free fall right now. Look, 10 years ago, more than 10, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I would play clips on my radio show of Bill O'Reilly saying, this guy's great. And he was talking about the New World Order, the Illuminati, but he only did it for a year or two to get an audience. And see, it's the same thing. Think of what Bill O'Reilly has turned into. See? And then notice now his ratings have dropped. And so he's attached himself to Beck. And so that's what's happening. Plus, millions of his listeners went out and found the Civilian Inmate Labor Camp Program. They went and found the National Emergency Centers Act. They went and found the congressional testimony. They went and found the Miami Herald and the Houston Chronicle and the Wall Street Journal saying, oh, yeah, here's the purchase orders for million-man camps and for during emergencies and for holding the American people. And now the public's reading the Violent Belligerence Act bill. And the public is just reading this going, well, what do you mean they're not doing this? And so he's getting hit by his listeners every day in emails and calls going, hey, Glenn, Northwoods is real. Well, what? Well, so again, I don't want to talk about Glenn Beck all day. You know, God bless him. You know what? He's being set up for a fall as well. He's being targeted. Also, what's happening is this is a hot takeover, and I appreciate your call, Dave. This is a hot takeover. This isn't the slow, creeping, big government takeover we've seen the last 97 years since the Federal Reserve took over. A lot of mid-level elites, and that means people with $100 million, people that are powerful, people that run in the highest channels, they're finding out that they're not going to be part of the capstone, that they're going to have their money taken, that their kids are going to be slaves. And so what's happening is executives are starting to almost subconsciously rebel and let big national hosts go further. Okay, I mean, because I've talked to mid-level radio executives, high-level radio executives, high-level media that report on the radio industry. I mean, they're constantly contacting me. And they say, this is off record, right? And I say, yes, so then I can't tell you their name. That's my journalist hat. But they're scared. I mean, they understand this is all real. And so they're beginning to really, what we've been saying, they're making a choice. And so let's give Beck the benefit of the doubt. I mean, there's lots of flip-flopping that goes on in a war. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and encourage him to cover the police state, to cover the cashless society surveillance grid, to cover FEMA camps. I mean, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll be right back. I mean, I want to focus on the banking takeover that's happening right now. We need to get Glenn Beck to explain that. And this is Gordon Brown's own words. World government is being established by a global constitution of the G20 private central banks that they represent, and they're going to put value-added taxes on everything we do. But then again, I remember what Glenn Beck's doing. He's been promoting VAT. Should I play that video again, play that audio again? I guess he is just pure evil. See, I'm trying to be nice here, folks, but then I say, hey, we got to reach out to Glenn Beck and get him to expose the banking takeover right now and how this is not Obama trying to, rein in the banks. And then I go, wait a minute, he's not going to do that. He's been towing the line. All right, now I've really gone off the deep end here talking about Glenn Beck. I don't want to discuss it anymore, okay? I just don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about issues. I want to talk about what's happening. I want to warn people and move forward. But yes, if we could get Rush Limbaugh, if we could get Glenn Beck to talk about what's really happening with the banking takeover, we could stop the global government. But, Limbaugh won't say there's a world government, so even when it's being announced, so there you go again. At least Michael Savage will. I just want to save the country and defeat the New World Order. I want to jump up and down and praise these mega talk show hosts. I just want my country back. I don't want to be a slave. And it's disgusting to watch them masquerading as patriots. I'm sick of it. Let's go to Todd in Georgia. Todd, thanks for holding her on the air.
Hey, I saw your film, Police State 4, yesterday, but I was looking at it, and midway through, I was just like, they're going to do the same thing here as they are doing in the Middle East. And so I have a couple questions. One question is, if you say that it's the same people that tried to put in the New World Order as Hitler, how are we going to stop their influence forever? And then second of all, how do we halt this incremental takeover, and how can we revoke the powers of these private companies, such as, just all the private companies that are involved, just corrupt and criminally taking over?
Well, again, this is not my opinion. It's in hundreds and hundreds of white papers. It's in Carroll Quigley's Tragedy and Hope, and he was a historian for the globalists. That's on record. That they fund anything that is command and control. Communism, socialism, fascism. They fund both sides or three sides of wars. And that's on record. Anthony Sutton and others got the government documents that our government, the British government, funded Hitler. Smedley Butler went public, a two-time Congressional Medal of Honor winner, top Marine. He was going to be Marine Corps Commandant. They wanted him to carry out a fascist coup. He said no. But the bankers are smart. They then fund the communists. I mean, again, they're masters at trying to control every major movement. And yes, they're going to try to set up the same kind of police state they did in Nazi Germany. I mean, folks, the 1968 Gun Control Act that Senator Dodd got passed, the deceased Senator Dodd, not the current one, is a word-for-word translation into English of the 1928 German anti-gun law that Hitler then expanded. And, of course, Senator Dodd was on the Nuremberg trial. That's where he learned about it.